my bookish beauties, and welcome back to my channel. I am Alice, aka the Book Muffin, and today I'm going to be doing a recent reads, but really because I've kind of been slow paced for this year so far, but it's picking up a lot now. I'm going to do all the books that I've read in 2021. Later on in the year, hopefully we'll be having my favourites of the year. But for now, I've got, I think, 17 or 18 books to talk about. So let's get on with the video. Yeah, basically, I thought that it would be a good time to start creating content again and pick up my reading pace a bit, and I get very inspired by making videos to read a lot more. So yeah, like I said in my intro, I have like 18 books to talk about that I've read so far this year. I've got them in chronological order for me. So I have them from January up until this month. So first of all, the book that I read in January this year, it kind of overlapped with Christmas actually, because I believe that I started it in December, but I'd have to check my Goodreads for that, is Night Film by Marisha Pessl. This book is literally my favourite thriller, I think, that I've ever read. I mean, some people would debate on whether it's actually a thriller, but me personally, I just think it is, and it's fantastic. It's such a unique way for thrillers to be told, and thrillers are actually like my favourite genre. So this book follows a detective who was discredited a while back by a film maker. So basically we follow like his journey after he accused this director of things not all being as they seemed on his sets, that he was up to dodgy business because he got a random tip off, and it turned out that nothing was going on. But then the film director's daughter turns up dead, and so he picks up this case because obviously he has like this big grudge with the filmmaker, and so it follows this incredible tale of what this girl did up to the days of her death and where she'd been and who she is. It follows quite a lot of her story when you'd think that it would be more the film director, but I think the book it's split up into three kind of main areas. That you have the characters who are just absolutely phenomenal, very believable. Then you have the film making, and then you have this crazy story of this girl who's wound up dead. So yeah, literally my favourite thriller of all times, and would highly recommend that if you want to get into thrillers, you should pick up this book. It would be quite an intense one to start with, but definitely worth it. Next, following again on this like thriller track, I read A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. This book I've heard so much hype about all over BookTube. It is a YA thriller. I personally really love this book. I gave it 5 stars, same as Night Film, that I also gave 5 stars. It was just an incredibly good thriller, and the thing is the way I read my books is I read with the audiobook playing alongside the book to keep up my pacing while I'm reading and to keep me reading more. And also, there are some really good audiobooks that you'd miss out on if you just read the physical copy. Unfortunately, in the UK, the audiobook for A Good Girl's Guide to Murder wasn't available, so I had to just read it in its rawest format in the book, and it was just brilliant. It was brilliant. It didn't take away from any of the storytelling. So basically, this is a girl who is doing her school project, and her school project, she's decided to follow the case where this girl died in this small town, and her boyfriend, as is pretty much a lot of the times the case, was accused of committing the murder, and then a few days later he wound up dead himself. And so we're following her conducting her own sort of investigations, and she befriends the accused boyfriend's brother, who also completely doesn't believe that his brother did anything. So it's quite a... it sounds a generic premise, you know, girl dead, boyfriend accused, but the twists in this book are so good, and it's layout in a format, I'll just try and find a page for you, where you have like scripts and things, so it really is set out like you're reading her project. There is a second book in the series, I haven't got around to it yet. I think I read this sometime around February or March, so I'll definitely be picking up the second one soon, because making this video is reminding me of how good this book was. The next book that I have read this year is All Your Twisted Secrets. This one was... it was kind of a letdown for me. I'd been really looking forward to this, and I'd seen on BookTube a few people saying this was one of the most anticipated reads for the year. This is another YA thriller, and unfortunately it did just miss the mark for me. I think I gave it like a 3-star or something like that, so it's pretty middle of the road, because there was an interesting twist at the end. The characters, some of them, it felt like only half the characters really got fully represented and fully followed along. With that being the case, I kind of felt a bit like I couldn't relate to half the characters. I didn't know much about them, so the consequences of what was going on in the situation, I didn't really care as much, if you get what I'm saying. So basically this book is, all these students are invited to go to a very exclusive dinner via an invitation, and they all don't know why they've been invited to go to this meal, and they're all told that it has something to do with like college and things like that, or most of them are told it has something to do with college, so they're all very eager to impress when they get there. But when they get there, they find that there is a bomb in the room, and the room has been locked from the outside, and there's no cell service, so they can't contact anybody. And there is also a syringe found on the table full of poison. So basically they're told, you either decide between you, one of you who should die, or the bomb will go off and kill all of you. And so it sounds like a really good premise, and much like One of Us is Lying, which was one of my favourite books of last year, it has like the whole character tropes, like Breakfast Club characters, you know, the jock, the nerd, the popular girl. It really had like a good setup. It just really missed the mark for me, unfortunately, and yeah, it just wasn't one of my favourites. It wasn't terrible, but it just wasn't great like the rest of the books I've read this year. So the next thing I read this year was the Hunger Games trilogy. So these, I just have to also show you that these copies are completely stunning. I do have a lot of copies of Hunger Games. Reason being is I read Hunger Games at a time in my life when I was a teenager where it was the perfect escapism, and it has been like cemented in my mind as this absolutely amazing book trilogy with amazing characters, amazing plot, just brilliant. And so I've been really scared, I guess for want of a better word, to pick them up again. I think I read them when I was like 15 or 16, so you can imagine GCSE years, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, they were so good, and I thought, you know, as an adult now, would I enjoy them as much? And the thing is I've been collecting all these copies. I think I have something like maybe 8 copies, different versions of the Hunger Games. I think this is the most recent ones, and they are just so stunning, absolutely stunning. But yeah, I read them again and they were just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I couldn't fault the series. So basically, for those of you who don't know, these are the Hunger Games trilogy by Suzanne Collins. We have Hunger Games, Catching Fire and Mockingjay. This basically follows a dystopian future where America is separated into districts, and the districts produce things to keep the country going, but they are sort of held under law by a capital, and the capital is very lush compared to everywhere else because there had been war in the past, and this government dictatorship took over, and basically to commemorate or remember the war that existed, each district, not the capital, must offer up a boy and a girl tribute to take part in a broadcasted fight to the death in a arena that is quite unique and designed differently every single year. But the aim is that there can only be one winner, and that person, you know, gets to live in lush luxury lifestyle for the rest of their life. But we follow the perspective of the girl who ends up getting chosen, sort of, to have to go take part in the Hunger Games, and we're following her journey over the 3 books. I don't want to tell you about the other 2 books because obviously that would spoil the series if you haven't already read it. This is one of the best trilogies. No, this is the best trilogy that I have ever read. So if you like dystopian futures, definitely recommend this. The next 2 books that I read is One of Us Is Next by Karen M. McManus. This is the sequel to One of Us Is Lying, and The Cousins by Karen M. McManus. Both of these were 5-star reads. Everything she writes is a 5-star read. These are YA thrillers. I mean, I'd say normally more that I don't gravitate to YA thrillers anymore, but I just have to say that these are so good. Everything she writes is just so good. And Two Can Keep a Secret is like one of the best thrillers I've read of all time. It is in my top 10, maybe 5 thrillers that I've ever read. It was just so good. That's one I recommend you picking up first if you want to get a taste of a good YA thriller. So One of Us Is Next is following the schoolmates and relatives of the original characters from One of Us Is Lying, and basically, I don't want to give away too much on this one. We don't really get many of the original characters returning. We get like sort of cameos, for want of a better word, by the old characters, but yeah, basically there is a like viral game going around the school, and basically it's a truth or dare kind of game, and if you refuse to play, then you have to face the consequences, and it gets quite sinister quite quick. The Cousins is I'd say it's still a thriller. It's an inheritance thriller. So basically 3 teens, they're basically given a letter one day that says that they are inheriting a bunch of stuff, money mainly, basically given an invitation to stay at their grandmother's resort in return for their inheritance, I believe. And things sort of go a bit crazy while they're there, and they reveal a lot about their parents, a lot about why their grandma is no longer interested in having anything to do with their parents. So it's kind of like rich people, inheritance money, drama. Really good though. So the next books that I read this year are the Thousandth Floor trilogy. I'm not sure if it has like a overarching name for it, but it's by Catherine McGee. And these are like Gossip Girl meets dystopian future. I really didn't think that this would be something that I would like, and I just picked up the first one on a whim. I mean, this was one of those situations where I went on Amazon, I saw the first one for cheap, and I was like, okay, well, it's been in my basket for a while because I saw it recommended by a couple of booktubers. I was like, I think I'll pick it up, and then ended up having, of course, to get the other two in the series, and it was on my shelf for maybe a week before I was like, I'm hitting a reading slump, I'm picking the first thing that I see, and it just completely pulled me out of my reading slump. I read all 3 books, I think within a week, maybe 2 weeks, which is kind of slow for me considering I have work and things. Kind of slow, kind of quick for me because I have work and things. So they were just absolutely brilliant. The drama, the characters are amazing. I mean, apart from one character who used to wind me up no end, and that is Avery. She's just, oh my gosh, like, it was the kind of situation where she is so hateable that you end up just loving it. Like, she was just so exasperating through the entire story. Like, she'd complain about the most trivial things when other things would be going on with other characters who... I mean, I might have to make a full video just like on the entire series, and there will probably be a whole section dedicated to an Avery rant. But yeah, this series, dystopian future, basically there is an absolutely huge tower complex where a bunch of people live. There is 1,000 floors, and on the 1,000th floor, which I'm finding very difficult to say for some reason, Avery and her family live because her dad basically designed the tower. And as the floors descend, it becomes more working class and lower classes. So the book really talks about class system quite well. It's very inclusive. There is LGBTQ plus representation in this book. There are class conversations. It's really, really good, and I really recommend you picking it up and not judging literally this book by its cover, because by cover alone I don't think I'd have picked this up, but it's definitely worth the read. The next book that I read this year is yet again another thriller. I mean, I'm sorry for how many thrillers are in this. It's just been like the main thing that I've been into this year. So this is The 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle by Stuart Turton. This book was such a journey, like a ride to read it. You had to pay attention the entire time, otherwise you would like miss something. And then, I mean, there were moments in this book that I had to like reread sections, because basically this guy, he wakes up in a different body every single day, and he has, I believe it's like 7 days, so just a week, to figure out and save Evelyn Hardcastle, who, in my opinion, was kind of an insignificant character, because the story isn't really about Evelyn Hardcastle, but there's a mysterious figure, there is a companion, there is an enemy, there is a journey. I mean, it's like reading a thriller from different characters almost, because every day he adopts some of the personality traits of these characters, and he can't help it. So his only way to be freed is to find out who killed Evelyn Hardcastle. So yeah, really, really good book. I think I gave this one 5 stars. I'm definitely sure I gave this one 5 stars. It was excellent, and I mean, the book alone is just beautiful. Like, the map was so handy to me because it's told all over the place, and they talk about different locations throughout the book, so I had to keep like referring back to the map and be like, so he was stood here while this was going on, to try and like figure it out along with our main character. Right, I apologise if the layout has changed ever so slightly. My camera decided to just die mid-filming, so excellent. Well, actually my storage card ended up being full, so I've had to switch it out, but brilliant, just cut my recording off. So, I'll go back to where I was up to. So, my favourite book of the year so far, which is no surprise to anyone who knows me because I'm obsessed with her writing, was You Love Me by Caroline Kepnes. The You series is just, it's so good. My favourite is Hidden Bodies, I have to say. I know that's controversial. A lot of people are like, use the best one, use the original. Hidden Bodies is just, it's like letting this crazy person out into a surrounding that's like double the size that he's used to. It was just with even crazier, wilder characters. This book felt a little bit more tamer, and I do have to say, in terms of the series, this would be my least favourite, but this is my favourite book of the year so far, so, you know, make of that what you will. This book follows, I'm not going to give a huge description on it, but Joe Goldberg, who is on a new adventure. He's moved to a little beachside town and is following a love interest. And that is all I'm going to tell you about this book, because if I do, it will spoil it. If you have enjoyed the series so far and you're not so sure on whether to continue with it, definitely do, because this book, it was so good. I mean, it's a tiny bit annoying that I don't have the other two in hardbacks to match the fact that this came out in a hardback. I mean, it is a beautiful hardback. The undercover purple is so good. But yeah, I'm hopefully going to get You and Hidden Bodies in hardbacks, because it would definitely complete my collection. And as you can probably tell from behind me, I am a bit of a collector. The next book that I read this year was Divergent. I had to show this beautiful copy because this is, I mean, it's the only hardback like this that they have in the series, where there's no dust jacket. It's like just printed on the actual book itself. But it is a stunning copy. It is the collector's edition. So, what can I kind of say about this? So, basically, this is Divergent by Veronica Roth. This is a dystopian future, again, kind of like Hunger Games. It is YA. Basically, we follow, again, a divided society. This time, though, places and people are divided based on personality traits. So you have those who are selfless versus those who are brave versus those who are candid and intelligent. So it's kind of a bit of a mix of very strange personality traits. But basically, when you turn 16, I believe, you go and take part in a test to tell you which area you are most applicable for, basically. So our main character, Beatrice, she goes and takes the test, and her test results reveal that she's a little bit of everything, basically. Or most things. And so she then is given the decision that she needs to pick a section to go into, and she chooses a very crazy option which leads her down a very crazy path, and she's also trying to hide the fact that she is divergent and not belonging to one specific society. Yeah. So basically it's her trying to hide this because the general community does not like divergence, and so we're just following her journey as she initiates into her faction. I believe they're called factions. I don't know whether I'm mixing it up with Hunger Games when I say faction, that's why I've been saying section. But yeah, you follow her journey as she is introduced to her new faction, and what happens from there, really. It's kind of, if I tell you any more than that, I will be revealing a bunch of spoilers. But this was a 5-star read for me. However, I don't know whether it's like my book mood has kind of shifted as of late back to thrillers again, but I haven't gravitated towards picking up Insurgent. I do have it on my bedside table as sort of my very all over the place TBR at the moment, but whether I'm going to pick it up anytime soon, I'm really not sure. I have so much that I really want to get to, and for some reason, despite this being 5 stars for me, I just haven't felt the impulse to pick up Insurgent. The next book that I read this year was Doubt. This book is a manga book, and it's kind of not like me to read this kind of genre. This was really good in the beginning, it really was, and I really enjoyed following the story, but as the book went on it kind of lost me, and the characters weren't really, I don't know whether the word developed is a good word, but I really didn't care as much about what happened to them as I would have liked. And when I got to a very vague ending, and you actually in the UK for love nor money cannot get books 2, 3 and 4, and this was quite an expensive purchase for me, so I kind of found it a little bit of a letdown. Basically the book follows a bunch of teenagers who, like most teenagers around the world, because this game has gone viral, play a game called Rabbit, I believe it's called, Rabbit Doubt is what it's called. And so yeah, they basically have like a person who is supposed to be a wolf among the sheep. They are the saboteur, so to speak, and that's just how the game goes, and they're trying to just figure out who it is before the person kills everybody off. Kind of an interesting premise. They then get drugged and ended up thrown into a real life version of Rabbit Doubt, where they don't know who is killing them off one by one. And they have so many doors that they have to unlock to try and free themselves, and each one has a tattoo of a barcode that can unlock only one door, and that door they can keep unlocking as many times as they want, but it's one per person. So yeah, it's kind of like, are they going to run out of barcodes before they run out of people? And yeah, it was a really good sounding premise, just not delivered very well for me. So yeah, but I definitely will be checking out more books in this kind of format, because I really did enjoy the way it was written. And I mean, it is a very beautiful book. I can't show you any of the pages because there's spoilers on it if you guys do want to check it out. So the next book that I read this year, I went on a slump for a little while, I do have to admit, but the next book that I read this year was The Maidens. This has been the book that has broken my book slump, reading slump. So yeah, this book was good. I gotta say, it was good. Was it my favourite? No. Was it awful? No, but it just didn't quite do it for me. It didn't quite drum home. The twists at the end were brilliant. I didn't see them coming at all. Very dark and dramatic, and it bumped up the rating for me because I was going to give this a 3-star, and because of the brilliant ending, it got 4 stars off me. So basically we're following a main character who has recently lost her partner, and she gets a phone call off her niece, yes, off her niece, who is at Oxford University, and basically a murder has happened and she's really freaked out because it was her really good friend. So our main character, who is also a group therapist, I really enjoyed the perspective of a group therapist. It is a type of therapy that I myself haven't really looked into much as like a type of therapy, though I know that group work is fascinating. I wanted to do my original master's dissertation surrounding group work. Unfortunately COVID stopped that, but it was really truly fascinating to hear that perspective. So you can imagine that was one of the reasons it got another star from me, because otherwise I think it would have been probably about 2.5 star from me. So yeah, she goes to the university, and while she is there, more murders continue to happen, and the girls' professor, because he has like a group of girls, he is accused of doing the murders, and our main character is determined to prove his guilt throughout this book. And so we're following this journey that she's going on. There's a lot of grief and death in this book. It does have very, very morbid moments, and I think that is why this book didn't really do it for me. It was far too morbid. I like a shock, I like a thrill, I like a suspense. I don't like morbidity, I don't like a lot of death. It just made it a bit difficult to get through at parts for me. You know, if you're good to cope with that, this book will probably be a 5-star for you, because even I had to give it a 4-star based on writing, the psychological perspective, and the twist endings alone. They just bumped it up for me, but there was no way I could put this amongst my 5-star reads purely because of the overhanging death, which is the main theme of the book. So, and finally, last but not least, it's been a little bit of a long video, but basically the last book I read this year is The Dinner Guest by V.P. Walter. So this book was another thriller, kind of a domestic thriller, and kind of a stalker type thriller, which I was very, very surprised about, really, because it doesn't give off that kind of vibe. I mean, on the back it literally says 4 people walked into the dining room that night. 1 would never leave. Matthew, the perfect husband, Titus, the perfect son, Charlie, the perfect illusion, and Rachel, the perfect stranger. So it doesn't really give off a vibe of stalker type thing, but I was really pleasantly surprised, because like with the series You, I really do like that kind of trope in my thriller books. So basically this story follows a very upper class family whom seem to like have it all. They're very perfect. So you have the 2 dads, which is Matthew and Charlie, and we're following one perspective, which is Charlie's perspective, and their son, their adopted son, Titus. And then you have this woman, Rachel, whom is a complete outsider. She's from Yorkshire, completely different accent, much more of like a middle class, working class background. So she finds one day a post on Instagram of Charlie and his family, and then for some strange reason she decides, because her mum's recently died, that she is going to take the money that she's been left by her mum, travel to London to try and live in one of the most expensive areas just to be close to them. And basically we get these chance encounters with Rachel, between Charlie and Matthew and Rachel, in, I believe it's Waterstones and Marks and Spencer's. And in those chance encounters, Matthew invites Rachel to join their book club. But we jump back into finding out that someone murders Matthew, and Rachel is taking the rap for it. Or is she? So it's like, why would she do this? Or why would she confess to doing this? Absolutely fascinating book. Literally, the last 100 pages of this book twisted so many times. The characters you identified with and sympathised with, but also hated some of them all at the same time. It was just absolutely amazing. I love character driven books. This book is 100% character driven. If that's not something that you're into, maybe this won't be the best thriller for you, but I absolutely love this book, so much so that I am going to say now that it is probably going into my top reads of the year, but also it's probably going to go into my top thrillers ever. It was just amazing, and I saw it on a whim one day, ironically enough, on Instagram, and by a book club that I follow on there. And yeah, so it's just brilliant. I really recommend that you pick this up if you like domestic or stalking thrillers. Just yes, pick this one up. It's so good. So that is all the books that I have read so far in 2021. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and also comment down below if you've read any of these books and you have any of your own thoughts and opinions on there. I really do enjoy reading comments. Also, my links to my Goodreads and Instagram will be down below, so please go ahead and follow me on there. Subscribe to my channel if you would like some more bookish content. I'm hopefully going to be posting more frequently now, and I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.